Hey everyone, welcome back to the Deciding Factor podcast. I'm John,
I'm Alton.
and Barb,
Where is she?
she's not here.
Barbara. Oh, it's messed up, Barbara.
Yeah, she decided to play without us, but it's okay. We've had to play without you too, Alton,
Oh, yeah,
a
that's true.
time or
I've
two.
actually been in Florida the last week, and still feel like I'm on beach time.
Well, today's show is Should I Date My Coworker? And I think today we gave a few good examples on both sides of the story, wouldn't you say?
Yep. Yeah, I think what you said though is that we should definitely request some of your stories. Tell us some of the crazy stories you have of
Oh, yeah.
coworkers dating or what did we say? Being intimate.
Fraternizing?
Yeah, fraternizing.
Oh, intimate with the
Yeah.
quotes.
Hmm.
Yes. Make sure you share those stories because, man, this story doesn't end up good without your comments and feedback. Make sure to check us out on social media: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And make sure you go to our website. Go click on some of those things that we've got posted up there. Share with your friends. That's what really matters the most. And guys,
Yeah, definitely send this podcast to some of your coworkers who are dating.
oh yeah, just send it. Don't put any information in the email.
Or just
And
tag them. Just tag them. Don't send it. Just tag them.
what are you trying to say? Yeah, stay tuned because we do share some statistics that we pulled, of course, off the most reliable place, the internet.
Hmm.
So stay tuned, and we will see you on this episode of the Deciding Factor podcast.
Everyday life issues broken down to help you build your own opinions on the issues that matter most. Coming to you from Austin, Texas, this is The Deciding Factor with your host, Alton Hill and John Herzog.
All right, so we're going to get into it. Should I date my coworker? I think Alton's already dating his coworker, so we kind of get his thoughts. But for the sake of the show, Alton, let's actually drop back and assume you're not married to your wife, um, and working with her, right, side by side. So
I didn't always work with her. So,
you came into it already married.
well, yeah, we started the business together. So, yeah, we were married on the business side, but I guess like what, 15 years I worked in the business with her. So,
But
I've
you
got a
also
little
didn't date her
experience.
during work.
Yeah, this is true. I did not. That would during high school. Does that count?
Yeah, but you never worked with her. Unless you worked at
No.
McDonald's with her.
No. No, I never worked at McDonald's.
Oh, you got lucky then. So I guess what we really need to do is define this down. So when we talk about dating at work, do we discuss the fact that it's truly just dating, or is it hooking up, full blown relationship? Like, what are we getting into here?
Yeah, I mean, I think anything, right? Like any intimate relationship at work changes the dynamics, probably, right? Of how things go. And I know too, like, well, we've covered a podcast about should a business be able to decide if whatever XYZ people should work here. And that's not what we're talking about today, right? Not should there be rules that govern people dating in the workplace, but we're more approaching this idea of is this a good idea for us to do, right?
Honestly, I think you should take it both ways. I think this is a good discussion to have both as the people in the workplace as well as the boss, because both, I think, are heavily affected by whatever you decide to do, right?
I mean, could be. I guess in the in the places that I have been working, like when I was doing the 9 to 5 thing before I had my own business, if I remember correctly, the rule set was generally it's cool if you date, but you have to let us know you're dating. And you couldn't, I think that there was like, you couldn't date your boss, or I think that that's what it was. I don't know. You're the HR guy. What's the like typical rules around that?
Well, honestly, it varies, right? Because you have the big companies and the small companies. If you have a company that is, say, 200 or below, odds are you probably have met everyone in that company for sure, right? But if we're talking about, say, a Time Warner Cable or a Walmart, well, a corporation of Walmart, not the regular store, there's a lot more people, and the odds of you ever intertwining with someone from a different department might be very slim. I'll give you a perfect example. I did actually work for Time Warner Cable back in the day, and I did date people at Time Warner, and it just doesn't work out, right? Because well, I take that back. Okay, so it did in certain situations.
John got dumped.
Yeah, no. If they are in your department, it can cause so much drama. If they are in, say, customer service and you're in sales, man, like you'll be okay. Now, their rules were, yes, you could never be the supervisor of someone you were intimately connected with. So that's the normal procedure. Now, when you get into the smaller businesses, some of the smaller businesses say you cannot date or fraternize in any way with anyone. Period.
Fraternize.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But at the same time, if we're talking about the guy that is VP of your company, do you really want to fire him? So are you really going to enforce it?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing too. Like, will they enforce it? I guess for me, I never saw anything really weird. And I guess there were 2 different times that I had people dating when I was working. And, like, it just wasn't that big of a deal. In both cases, they were across departments, so they didn't report to the same boss. And it wasn't like a boss subordinate relationship. And it was weird when not everyone knew. That was like the thing when it was the time of like, we're not sure if we're actually dating or not yet. And so not everyone knew. Then it was kind of like, oh, this is weird. But then once everybody knew that they were dating, then it was like, I think that was a better thing, because then everybody was aware that they were dating. And to me, it was less of a big deal then.
But see, once you start to talk, you've kind of already crossed that line, don't you think?
Well, I don't know what your talking is in quotes, but John, just because you and I go out to dinner doesn't mean that we're dating.
Well, I understand that, but okay, so I'm speaking from the aspect because I do HR, and I've seen very emotional people at times, and some
But then people may be,
flirtation.
people may be intimate and not even going out to dinner either. So
Yeah.
like,
Just flirting with someone can actually trigger some emotions in people. I mean, I've seen some girls like fall head over heels for a guy, and he's just being nice.
yeah, that
But
happens
yeah,
to me all the time. Dave Magnet for sure. So, okay, so let's get back to this though. Like, as a business owner, in my opinion, if you have people dating, I think that you should just disclose it. I think that's like a big deal. Don't like try to hide it from everybody because it doesn't have to be a big deal. But if you hide it, if you're just having dinner with somebody though, like, I don't think that that's like, you have to disclose it. But I
now
mean,
keep in mind, as an owner of a company, you can make those rules in certain states. Texas, in particular, like we've talked about in the past, is an at-will state, so they can make that rule if they want to do it, and you can either find a new job or abide by the rules.
Yeah, I guess that's when the people try to keep it under wraps, right? It's like, oh man, I'm gonna get fired if somebody finds this out.
Yeah.
And I think it's even more weird when it's like, I mean, for you on the HR side, like quid pro quo type of. Now it's weird, because you have a boss and somebody reporting. So,
Well, I
oh
mean,
man, I'm having so many scenes of The Office flashing in front of my mind right now.
yeah, I mean the issue
Shut
you really
up,
have in
Toby. That's
the
why no
issue
one likes you. Sorry, go ahead.
the real issue you run into is like sexual harassment claims. You get in that really gray area when people start wanting to break up and do things. Then it's like,
Yeah. That's
oh,
probably it, right? Like, and that's why I think we got to talk about the wisdom of whether this is a good enough idea. Like in the podcast before, I'm like, hey, man, business should be able to decide whatever they want, hire, fire, whatever. But man, from the like, should I date someone? Should I date my coworker? I think we have to talk about like the prudence of like how smart is this? I
okay.
mean, you
So
said you've done it, right?
I've dated in in the work space before, both small and large companies. Um, I think the bigger thing would be, do you have an example of a good outcome?
Do I?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
the other
So,
person on the show with me.
oh, yeah. Well, I didn't know if we were like metaphorically speaking,
I didn't do quotes that time.
rhetorical. Okay. So yes. All right. So one was when I worked at AMD, and there was a couple that I think that they dated for a while, and then finally, I guess they decided it was real enough that they let people know, and then they ended up getting married and having kids. I don't know how many kids they have now, but they worked at AMD for several years, maybe still there. I don't know. But at least like 5 or 6 years, maybe no more than that. But yeah, but they were married, had a kid, and seemed like super happy.
Wow.
And then at another company, which was a smaller company, probably never had over 100 employees. Another, like high tech startup company. There was like this software guy, and there was this project manager girl. They didn't really, I mean, they were both there, and some of the projects I think that they may have worked on together, but like there were other project managers. So once they knew that they were a thing, she just never really managed his projects. But I mean, I remember being in meetings where he was like a point of contact on some of these things, and it just wasn't weird. And they're still together now. They actually
Are
built
they
a
still working there though?
well, that company closed. I don't really know what if they're still together working or not, but they built a sailboat together. And like, I mean, so
Hmm.
I would say that totally worked for them. I mean, at least for as much as it did for any other like non-working people, right? I mean, like, will they be together forever? I don't know, but last I heard, they were doing fine. And those were, I can't think of any other times where people dated that didn't work, I guess.
Well, so I've seen a few occasions where it worked. Nothing like what you're talking about, but I've seen a lot more of the bad.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen marriages get destroyed because of people that are married doing stuff with coworkers.
Oh, so they're
Yeah.
messing around. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in that
And then
case,
they
I
bring it
can.
to work, because the wife walks up and she's like, "I want to know who this is."
Oh no.
And then you're just like, "Oh crap, dude. Like we can't have that
Well, you
here."
had, yeah. I mean, from the work standpoint, that really sucks. But from the dude who's messing around, like, hey, should have seen this coming.
But then you've had what we call the work sluts. the girls that sleep with multiple guys and then they start finding out and then it's like, oh my gosh, then you've got an outbreak of STDs and hurt feelings all at once. I'm telling you, we get some weird stuff. Um, and then of course you have those really you get those really nasty breakups, right? Where it's like, oh, I've got to transfer out of this department. I can't stand to be around him. He either cheated on me or he, whatever it may be. He got me pregnant and then ran. There's some crazy stuff, but it's like when you're locked in, you're kind of screwed, especially if you're in a small company, If there's
No, I
only
think
10 people, you're still going to touch each other throughout the day.
yeah, it can definitely be a sticky situation in dating. I mean, and that's just true.
And then you got to think about it. Okay, so let's say it works out, they get married or something. If one person gets mistreated by the manager, they want to leave. Are they taking their spouse with them?
Certainly could.
Or what happens if you and Heather are working someplace, she gets fired? How does that work all out? Or they do layoffs.
Oh yeah. I mean, that to me is the biggest risk from my perspective. If we're both working at the same company, and I guess most of my jobs have been with tech startups or tech companies, and it's cyclical. It's like there's a time when everything's booming and they're hiring and everybody's making all the money, and then now it's not. And now people are getting let go. And I think, John, a lot of the topics that we've done on this podcast have been, kind of securing your financial future. And if you're putting all of your financial eggs in that single basket, it's definitely risky, especially if you're not preparing with a nice, savings and planning for, hey, what happens if me and my girlfriend or me and my wife both get canned on the same day,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's worth it, right? Especially if you're high up or something. Maybe it's worth it. But, and I'm sitting here saying this also, I'm working, like my wife and I have a company, right? So
Well, didn't you fire her?
I'm trying. I'm trying.
I thought you fired her to make her be a stay-at-home teacher.
Well, I did, but then like a project comes along and I'm like, she's the best for this. So, hey,
You're
I gotta
rehired.
work some. Gonna have
So
to
she's
do
a
it.
part-timer is what you're saying. She got demoted?
Yeah. Yeah, she definitely got demoted. But no, I mean,
I feel
she's
like
still
that's the
super
true
helpful.
definition of sexual harassment. If you want to work here a little more, a little longer, then you got
But
to stay my
yeah,
boo.
I don't think that she to do as much work. Well, she likes doing the mom work. So, although I do think it's good for all of us. Like I've found that artists have to produce art. Like creators, they have to create. And so I think at least in her scenario, like it's good for her to go and do some design stuff too, but it's not good for her to do like 60 hours of design work and try to do homeschool.
So,
So,
so I want to twist your mind here. So, I mean, truly, the show is about should I date my coworker? But I want to turn it back to, let's say you, Alton, your design, not your design company, your digital marketing company. It blows up. You've got, say, 500 employees.
mhm.
Are you going to let anybody date at your work? If so, what are the stipulations?
I think for me, I would just ask them to disclose it, really. And I would say that I think I would just put stipulations in there to protect myself as the owner, where I could enforce something if I wanted to. So I may say, like, you can't date if you're in the same group, you know? And if somebody is dating in the same group, then I could fire him, But I think some of these rules and stipulations, like I remember when Heather and I decided to start doing this thing together, someone was like, "So you're going to be working together a lot, right? Like probably all day, same house, you know?" And Heather's like, "Yeah." And they're like,
Fantastic.
"But that's not good." And she's like, "Well, it's not
That
bad, you know?"
that was
Like,
that was part of the reason I got kicked out and forced into my new job, right? And the wife was like, "You need to get out of the house, so you go take that job."
yeah. So I think some of this, you have to use your discretion, right? And you have to, I would say, no offense to McDonald's workers, but the people who are working at McDonald's may not be the same people who are working at a high tech firm. People who are degreed, like some of the people that I'm thinking of are have master's degrees, so
But we're
not
talking
that.
about emotions here.
No, I know. I'm not saying
Okay, I
that
just want to
that
make
accounts
sure.
for anything. I'm just saying that people who maybe I could say it like this: if you're earning more, you might be less likely to throw all that away. That may not be true, but I'd much rather lose a McDonald's job than a six-figure job,
Would you like to know a
right?
story?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, I
I'm
get
just
your
saying
point,
it
but
may
we're
not be
talking
true all the
emotional
time.
humans. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it. Um, I think it would be bad. Like I definitely prefer the more libertarian approach of like do this because I think the flip side is like Heather and I, because of our intimate relationship, we know each other really well and we can work really well together because she knows my weaknesses and I know her weaknesses, and so that actually makes us more efficient and allows us to be more effective as a pair. That doesn't always happen, right? So I think that we have to look at a curve on whether or not this is a good idea. And I would like to believe that the people that I would hire would be good people, and so it wouldn't matter that much. But eventually something has to blow up, right? Like in every scenario, sales, marketing, production, something's gonna fall through the crack, and I think, like you're saying, you get emotions involved, and it's not good. And I know, like I've heard a lot of allegations too in companies, like, oh yeah, look who just got promoted. Wonder how that happened, right? Yeah, saw him at the bar, whatever. And so that's kind of not cool. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely a, a challenging topic for me because, like, literally, I'm working with my spouse, but then the other part of the business side of me is like, it should be strictly business, and you shouldn't do it. It's a bad idea. But here I am. Although this isn't
Okay.
the first bad idea I've done either.
All right. So then two questions. One is, does the size of the company matter, or does your opinion stay the same in that scenario? Is your answer still, I'll let them do it with restrictions?
I think that would be the case. Um,
You're
yeah,
thinking
because,
really hard about that.
well, like, I think that I would want to develop a culture that attracts people of like minds, people who want to push the limits, who want to better themselves, who want to be committed not only to a company but to a cause. And they're hard workers. They like to play hard. They're just go getters. That's the type of people that I want to be surrounding myself with. So if I'm able to create that culture, then I would think that some of these people are going to be attracted to each other, you know? And so who am I to say, oh, yeah, I want to lose this great talent because of some rule, right? But man, I tell you what, some mad wife comes in because there's like some shadiness happening with some employees, I'm just going to fire them all because I'm like, zero tolerance for this crap. Get out. I don't care what it's going to cost me because I'm not doing this. Whoop. So I think if I had some stipulations in there, it would just put a little more caution. Like, hey, don't do this, but it's cool.
Okay, so your second question would be how if we have some married couples listening that are thinking about working together, what would be your suggestion in dealing with the fact that, for example, what if Heather took a sales call for you one time and she
funny.
blew it and like
Yeah.
cussed a customer out because she lost her cool? Now what?
Well, I mean, I think that's where we have to. I think that's why it's important to understand what your role is. And in the early stages, we were trying to share the roles. Like she's the design side, she does the logos, and like if she's busy, I'd be like, "Oh, I'm just gonna do a couple mock-ups. I'm pretty clever. I'll do this and that." And it would just suck. I'd spend 4 hours working on something. She'd come in 10 minutes like, "Hey, what about this?" And then I'm like, and she knows, yeah, like it's just done now. And I spent 4 hours and couldn't figure it out. And I'm frustrated. She does it in 10 minutes. And I'm like, I should have just waited the 4 hours, right? Like, why was I trying to do her job for? And so that's why I said, when you know what you're good at and what your partner's good at, and I think that this goes beyond spouses, right? Like any business partnership, I think while it may not be an intimate relationship, it is a relationship, and you need to check these things. Like, do you have a skill set that is complementary to mine, or do we just both want to run a podcast because we think it'd be cool? And we never stop to think like, hey, who's the big picture guy? Who's the detail guy? Who, like we got to think about those things. And so when you're looking at a business with your spouse, I think you need to look and see like, hey, can she run the books? Because I hate doing books, or what?
I feel like you're trying to hash out our own issues with our podcast. Who's going to do this?
Well, I'm just saying that that's true. And so you need to work that out. And I think a lot of people don't come into it with a plan, and they don't really know who's going to do what. And so they don't know who's making those decisions. Like Heather's never taking a sales call. She's just not going to do it. And I know that. It's like, it's just not going to happen. She's not going to do it. She'll take a call and say, hey, Alton, we'll call you back. But that's it. She's not saying nothing else. Like, I'll take a message. And if somebody's like, hey, Alton, can you work on a logo? I'm like, I know someone who can, and she's doing it. And I think that having that communication, that level of understanding with your partner is the right way to do it. And I work with a lot of, like, usually it's like an HVAC plumbing company where it's like the technician. He's the one who like knows how to do the business side, but then he's got his wife, answering the phones, like managing the office, right? And so it works well. So I've seen a lot of that where the wife's not going to go out there and try to fix a toilet. She knows, like, hey, I don't do that. That's the husband's job. I'm going to sit in here and like schedule stuff. And so, yeah, and you're going to screw it up in business. So you just got to be ready to forgive each other on all that. Like, because it's actually me screwing up the sales call. It's like, what? You didn't close that deal? Do you want to follow up with them? No? Okay. Like,
oh man, so I'm looking at the stats. Looks like 58% of employees have engaged in some type of relationship with a colleague. It's kind of weird. Let's see.
is it? I mean, think about how much time you spend at work. Probably 40 hours a week at least.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
shoot, I was at one point I was working 80-hour weeks with
Well,
people.
so get this. Anyone over the age 50 It's actually a 72% chance that they are going to be romantically involved.
Now,
So the
is
older
that
you
like
get, the
9 to
more.
5ers or is that business owners?
It doesn't give that great detail. But I mean,
Well, I'm
it's
definitely part of that statistic then, if that's the case.
now. I don't want to persuade you in any way, but
Yeah.
they
Go ahead.
also say that 84% of employers are not happy with their employees dating one another. 84%.
Yeah. Well, it's just like extra risk, you know?
Hey, here's the one you're talking about. So when you talked about people getting married at work to their coworkers, it's actually a 44% chance of that actually taking place.
I'm
That
telling you,
actually
man,
end
like
in
you're
marriage.
spending
That's
so much
crazy.
time together. Dude,
But
that's
that's
it.
crazy. 44% of marriages, or sorry, 44% of the dating at work ends up in marriage. That's
I
crazy.
mean, I think that that's what's missing in a lot of relationships, right? So a lot of relationship days, it's like, let's just go do fun stuff. Let's all pretend everything's perfect. And then, but in work, you can't do that, right? It's like you knew them before we were dating and they were behaving a certain way. So you know them. So you're getting an authentic relationship from that, right? Like, probably. We could assume that there's more. You just know someone before you were dating, which is different than like we've talked about on these dating apps where you just swipe, 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 and then, hey, we're a match or whatever. And I think that that's what if you want more depth to your relationship, you have to go through the good and the bad. And at work, like, it's just some bad, right? Like, you both lost that client the same, or, you both had to go through a crappy quarter the same, or you both had the jerk boss. So,
Well, I'm betting there's some listeners out there right now. They're just thinking, why the workplace? You've got Tinder, eHarmony, some of those other goofy apps. I mean, why would you take the chance at ruining your workplace space?
man, look, you can always get another job, but talking about your soulmate, man, gotta risk
Okay.
it.
Okay, so then what about the fact that you could fall head over heels with Heather at the workplace and then she's like, "No, you know what? You're not good enough to marry Alton." You're going to be devastated.
Sure.
Really? Doesn't phase you at all? It's not going to bother you? You'll see her dating other men in the workplace?
Yeah, but I don't care that much. I just go find a different job. It'd just be a good reason to get another job. Like, I don't. You have to think about the progression that I've done, right? Like, I've been with companies that have gone bankrupt and just closed the doors, right? Which is like getting laid off or whatever. I've been at companies that, tried to lay people off. I've quit the best job I've had to start my own company. So to me, I'm never afraid to get a new job. Like, that's never been an issue for me. But some people are like,
I mean,
like,
I
it's
like to
just
stay
hard.
with companies a long time. I don't like the moving around.
Yeah, no, and I get that. But,
And I
if the
definitely
love
don't
of
want
my
to leave
life
because of a
ditched
girl.
me, well, yeah, but I mean, in that case, if I was that devastated, I would just start looking for another job.
Yeah.
And
All
to me,
right.
it's like, well, maybe that was God's way of saying, get out of there and I'll get a better job
Well, I'm
and a
feeling
better
like we're going to
chick.
be I feel like we're going to be split on this, but are you ready for it?
I'm so ready.
All right, here we go.
Now it's time for our deciding factor.
Oh yeah. The good old music. So, I've got to say that based on my experiences that I've seen, at least in the Texas region, it is not a great idea to date your coworker. I have seen way too many things go bad in so many different formats. Even from the hey, let's just go on a date, see what we think, to people trying to make babies or at least practice it, you know? I mean, it just goes south. Marriages get ruined, careers get messed up, and the cops eventually end up showing up at the workplace. So I just don't think it's worth it. I am one of those people that say, you've got Tinder, you've got eHarmony, go go find your love somewhere else other than the workplace. However, yes, if I found the love of my life at the work, I would have a hard time walking away from it. But at the same time, I'd be a little weary of trying to push it to find enough about the person where I get those feelings. Because how do you really know unless you're spending a lot more time in some kind of intimate atmosphere, right? Whether it's eating dinner, doing extracurriculars, like sports, not talking the other stuff. But I just think you won't know it otherwise, right? So I'm going to go with stay the heck away from it. Employers, if you're listening, I would, unless you're a big corporation, I would probably not allow fraternizing at work.
Should be like an insurance plan. Like, yeah, you can date, but that's going to be $50 a week off of your paycheck. Putting that in insurance, in case you bail on us. I mean, they have those insurance, right? Like if you lose key people.
Nationwide is on your side. I'm not stealing your copyright.
Should you date your coworker? I'm going to say that wisdom says this is a bad idea. So I'm going to agree with you, John, and say you should not do it. As a whole, if we're looking at it statistically. But then the other side is like, I don't really like following the rules and I don't really care about the statistics. So I think it's okay to say this is a bad idea. It could be really expensive, could cost me my job, could cost whatever. But you know what? I think that this is the one or whatever. I mean, I think if you're dating people, there should be some amount of this is the one involved. You're just wasting your time. Yeah, if it's just like a fling thing, then definitely not. Like, man, if you're just looking for companionship short term, then you should find it outside the workplace.
The most politically correct response to it.
I mean, I think that's a bad idea just in general. But yeah, that would be a terrible thing to do. It's just like, oh, work's good for this, right? Like, no, that's a bad idea. But you know, you can, and if you find the one and you think they're the one, man, go for it. Screw the statistics. Like, life's too short.
I'm shocked. I really thought you were going to go against the grain here.
I mean, I've done a lot of things that wisdom says don't do this, but I do it. Right? Statistically, this is a bad idea, but you just have, you know, like, in literally, Heather and I were talking the other day about things that happen to people, and I was thinking how delicate our bodies are. Like one person, no, this has been a few years. She died in her home because she choked on something. and no one was around there, and like Heimlich died. And we saw this because there was the security cam, or we were talking about this. There was security cam footage of someone choking all alone, and they had to Heimlich themselves and almost passed out, and then they finally like their own life from choke. And I just said, we are so delicate. Like we're always we have to eat every day. We're always on the verge of dying. Idiot. And so like I think that life and if it's worth pursuing, then pursue it and take on risk.
Okay, so I kind of answered a bonus question. I want you to kind of do the same. Give us the employer perspective now. Do you implement a policy against it?
Employers can do whatever they want. You know, that's my thing. Like, if you think that relationships are a bad idea, then instate it. If you think that there's some great efficiency and you want to be, you know, contributing to a culture that people get married, I mean, that's like, for a lot of people who create their businesses, that's their baby, that's their world, that's their life. And to imagine that you created a business that not only solved this great problem and you know, paid checks and paid your paycheck, but it facilitated an environment that attracted people that wanted to date and get married and have babies. I mean, I think that's super cool. So it's your business. Like, I'm going to mind my own business and let them make their own decision on that.
Man. All right, guys. I think that's going to do it for us. Anything else you want to add to it, Alton?
No, I think we definitely, this may be the most on the fence we've been here.
Stay
Right?
safe. Use protection.
What?
Especially in the workplace. Man. Well, guys, make sure you send us your comments and really share some of those stories. I know you know some workplace relationships that have taken place. So I want to hear the stories. Let's show Alton some of that.
This has been another
All right,
episode
guys.
of The
Till next
Deciding
time, we
Factor.
will catch you on The Deciding
Giving you
Factor
food for
podcast.
thought on real
Make sure
life
you follow us
issues.
on
Be sure to
Facebook,
click,
Twitter,
like,
Instagram,
and subscribe to this
well
podcast.
our
As well as
website.
all your big social media outlets, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Don't forget to check out our website at
then, of course,
thedecidingfactorpodcast.com and give us comments and feedback. Until next time, stay safe and remember to keep an open mind.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time. Say bye.
Bye-bye.